with your forbearance, I'll take you on a bit of a journey, my journey. I hope it's helpful, but that's what you're getting anyway. So that's rock and roll. I found myself thinking maybe I'm a bit like Michael J. Fox or Glenn McGrath. Michael J. Fox found out he had Parkinson's disease, and we ended up with a foundation. Glenn McGrath's wife Jane died of breast cancer, and we ended up with a foundation. I found out that I had sleep apnea back in about 2004. I found myself, I would wake up of a morning and still feel really, really tired. There were literally mornings where I sat at the side of the bed, slouched forward and slept in a seated position. I would come home from work, sit on a couch, and I would snore the house down. There were nights when Tina, my wife, had to shift bedrooms because I was so loud for her. There were times when she would nudge me because I had stopped breathing, and just to see if I was still alive. So at that point, due to unrelenting pressure from Tina and my two daughters, I went and saw the doctor, and he sent me off to a sleep specialist, and I ended up being diagnosed with sleep apnea and ended up on a CPAP machine. And at that point, I became interested in sleep. That's why I say I'm a little bit like Michael J. Fox and Glenn McGrath. I ended up going to a series of presentations at the Unley Town Hall, and Sarah was one of the presenters there. Now, what she spoke about didn't necessarily directly relate to me, but as a student counsellor at the time, I heard her talk about some stuff that I thought, whoa, I'm seeing some stuff, and I hadn't put two and two together. This is a more important issue than I had anticipated it would be. So I felt the need to connect with Sarah. But before I launched, I went and saw my boss, Panahula Paha, principal of Norwood Moriata High School. I think she's still the principal now. And just checked with her whether it would be okay for me to invite Sarah into our school and maybe run her Australian Sleep Education program. Panahula was fantastic. She said, yes, let's do it. I mean, it hadn't been done by any other school at the time. I think we were the first. And I was fortunate. I worked with a colleague, Christine Sweeney, who was a math science teacher, is a math science teacher. And she was willing to give over her Year 10 science class so that Sarah could run a pilot program. So we arranged for that. I can't remember what term we ran the program in, but as it still runs now, it's a 4-week program, one session. The sessions will run for about 50 minutes. Sarah presented, so it was her really piloting her program. And at the end of it, Sarah sought feedback from the kids. How did you find the program? If there were going to be any changes, what sort of changes needed to happen? She also sought that feedback from myself and Christine. And then she went away and she made changes to fine-tune the program, which is what this next slide's about. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. At that time, I think it was 2007, I had won a position as a counsellor at Golden Grove High School. So again, I approached my then principal, Jude Leake, and asked her, could we possibly do it? And she was on board with it, and the health and home ec coordinator, Ruth Burton, also said, look, I'd be happy. So at Norwood Moriata, at that point, we were delivering to one class of Year 10 students. But Ruth Burton and Jude Leake were happy for us to present to students in Year 10 that did the subject of health, which was about half of the year level. So you can imagine if, and I was at Golden Grove for 5 years, if about 50% of the cohort in Year 10 were going to undertake health, then you were eventually going to cover half of the school, which is not a bad coverage. I mean, I would love to make it 100%, but 50% is better than nothing, and Golden Grove High School has a population of 1,200 kids. So we're looking at 600 kids. By the time a student goes from Year 8 to Year 12, about 50% of them have received this sleep education program. But I finished my time there and moved on to Adelaide High School, and again, as you do, you go and check with your principal, you need to get the boss's say so. Anita Zocchi was more than happy for me to arrange for the program to be run in the school, but please go and talk to the PE health coordinator. I went and spoke to him, and he cited, and I'm not disputing him on this, I mean, you know, Cecilia was talking about it before, curriculum is really quite packed. And he had said to me, I just can't find the space for this, I can't do it. And I know the science curriculum is also very heavily packed. I attended a science faculty meeting just 3 days ago where the coordinator said we need to kind of juggle things around so we can make it fit, because time is very, very tight for us. If I approach the science coordinator and ask them for time to include sleep in the curriculum, and also given that it's not a part of what's mandated by ACARA, I'd be pushing fecal matter up the proverbial hill. So we were stuck. However, I'm not one to be deterred, and I apologise for any of you that are cat lovers. I believe this is a particular breed. We at Adelaide High School, we run something called a transition program, which is for year 8 to 10 students. Now, I think on the next slide, I hope, is a little sample. It's so small, I'm sorry, but there's so much on the page. Somewhere in here, I managed to slip some stuff on sleep. Now, this is the year 8 contents page. There's a year 9 version, there's a year 10 version, and I slipped sleep into each year level. I actually, in the end, ended up feeling that this was pretty fortuitous, because we do a 4-week program, and I noticed that some of your research says you go down the track and it's almost like it's forgotten. It's like, what's the next thing I need to focus on? And I felt like doing it this way, a little bit in year 8, a little bit in year 9, a little bit in year 10, it's just this constant tapping on their shoulder. And each year I tried to introduce them to a slightly different concept that related to sleep. So let me take you through. At year 8 level, this is what I did. I had them, now it was in term 3, I had students complete a 2-week sleep diary. And my focus was on what time do you go to bed, what time do you wake up, do you wake up during the night, and following the next day, how would you rate your level of concentration in class? I wanted to make the association, amount of sleep, level of concentration. Having done that for 2 weeks, I asked them to take out their 3 best nights of sleep, the nights that they had the most sleep in, their 3 worst nights, place the level of concentration that they had designated for that night, work out an average and compare the two. I have no idea what each of these kids are going to get individually, but overall, my intention was for them to look at, hey, I get a better night's sleep, my level of concentration is better. So in terms of, you see that in year 8, you already know, because you're in for a journey through your schooling, you've got another 4 years ahead of you, you already know, if I get a decent night's sleep, I concentrate better the next day. So that was year 8. Then at year 9, I wanted to try and introduce the concept of sleep hygiene. I again had them do, this time, a 1-week sleep diary, and focusing on factors that made their sleep more difficult to achieve in terms of quality and in terms of duration. And then I had them, at the end of that, list the 3 most significant factors and to think about what could they do to avoid experiencing those factors. So being able to fall asleep would be easier, and having a more restful night's sleep would be more achievable for them. And then we move into year 10, where I get a little more serious. I got a little more serious about the sleep diaries, and in terms of the way stress affects students. So I wanted to look at how stress affects students. So I had them do a sleep diary in week 3 of term 1. Now, I know there are confounding factors, but I just wanted to do something pretty simple. Week 3 of term 1, they've just come off of holidays, they're pretty relaxed, and they're pretty low on stress levels. So my assumption, my guess, and I have no idea whether I'm right about this, my assumption is their sleep's going to be pretty stable and fair duration. I then had them do a sleep diary in term 3, week 6. And I know what term 3 is like. Term 3 is that term where there are no holidays. Where if you're thinking it in terms of a marathon, it's like, holy shit, I've just gone a whole distance and I can't even see the finish line. And so they're feeling really tired and they're feeling quite jaded and stressed. So I want to do a comparison of how much sleep are you getting week 3, term 1, how much sleep are you getting term 3, week 6. And then the program introduces them to ideas like sleep hygiene. So I go through all the elements of sleep hygiene. I don't personally go through it. This is actually run by pastoral care group teachers, so the information is there for them to access. So the information is presented regarding sleep hygiene, about the benefits of exercise, mindfulness meditation, problem solving, and time management. And it's, you pick, all right, which of those stress management tools would you like to use? And I want you to do another week of sleep diary now that we're deep into the year and you're experiencing the stress, and just see what effect using a stress management tool will have on your amount of sleep. So again, it's a focus on sleep. It's me kind of using what I know from sleep, and then just trying to just constantly tap them on the shoulder. I think in terms of sleep education, I think it's important that stuff is repeated. I think, you know, you talk to them about it one time and they'll listen to it and they know it's important. And if you ask them about it years later, they know sleep is important. But what happens is the next priority comes along. The next pressure for your attention comes along and they pay attention to it, you know, as I think you or I would do. So I think it's about you constantly tap them on the shoulder and you remind them of why sleep is important. So that's what I attempted to do in the transition program. The other thing Paul spoke about is that we have Year 12 psychology. There's a topic in Year 12 psychology called, and I love this title, The Psychobiology of Altered States of Awareness. I'd have much preferred it if they just said sleep and stress. That would have been better, because that's what it is. It's a half a topic on sleep and a half a topic on stress, and they kind of meld them together.
I think that would have been drug use. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I know. Look, going by this year's figures, I'm taking one of the 2 Year 12 classes this year. There are 2 classes, probably some total of about 45 students. We've got a Year 12 cohort of 250 students. That's less than 20%. So less than 20% of senior students are going to receive information about sleep, and it's more than likely that this topic, because it's in the listing of topics, it's number 5, it's more than likely that they'll get it sometime in the first half of term 3, when they're already stressed out, when they're already buggered. And yes, I like this information, I don't have time to do anything about it. So it's a case of shutting the barn door after the horse is bolted. It's useful, but its timing isn't helpful. That's why I like the stuff that in the transition program, getting it done earlier, just reminding them, you know, in the lead up to their SACE, just reminding them that you do need to take care of your sleep. If you do take care of your sleep, there are going to be so many benefits that you'll achieve as a result. Now, I think, let me just check the next, yes, okay. I found myself, over the holidays I worked on a program. I still don't know what I'm going to call it. I think I'm going to call it a healthy SACE, but this is one of the, I can come up with a program, I just struggle about what to call it. It's the simplest thing probably. I wrote down a whole lot of things that I thought would be barriers to SACE completion. Now, this ordinarily wouldn't fit into this slideshow, but after a little bit of thinking I thought, yes it does. Because I found myself thinking, I reckon just about every single one of these, I would probably exclude priorities, student priorities, just about every one of these can have an effect on sleep, and sleep can have an effect on just about every one of these. So it just made me feel like sleep education is all the more important, that we need our kids, because if we can start to get sleep right amongst the kids, then they do have more time available to them. They can concentrate a lot better. They don't tend to find work tasks so overwhelming. Perhaps they don't procrastinate so much. They're more successful, so their self-efficacy is higher. There's a whole lot of connections that, in my mind, made me feel like this is really important. Okay, so where are we at? These are, for me, the impediments to sleep education. We're constrained by the requirements of ACARA, and that's the chief curriculum and assessment body of the country, and by the SACE, because they prescribe what's going to be in each of the Year 11 and Year 12 subjects. So we're kind of stuck there. This stuff that I've got in the transition program, we've got 10 Year 8 classes, 9 Year 9 classes, 9 Year 10 classes. So what does that work out to? 28? All right, and some classes have got 2 pastoral care group teachers. The transition program is run during pastoral care group, which is 30 minutes on a Monday between lesson 2 and 3, and 20 minutes on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. How interested are the teachers in, and let me go back to the contents page, visualise it, how interested are they in each of those elements that they need to present? Do they give a staff? Some will be very, very interested, others won't. You've got your normal distribution, you'll have, at the tail end. I don't care. I just want to sit here and let them talk amongst themselves. They need that break time. Frankly, I need that break time as well, and there'll be others that think this is really important, this is really useful. So we need to find a way of selling it to staff so that they feel like this really, if I deliver this, it will be useful not just to the kids, but to me down the track. Because if these kids are concentrating and their marks are better, I get to feel good about what I'm doing with them. So there's like a lot of educators don't always think about that. I have to remind myself to think about it sometimes. Look, the other issue is that we get swamped. I know I could not be angry with any of my Adelaide High School colleagues, because I know over the last 12 months we've been working on what they call SACE, Council of International Schools Accreditation. More and more schools want that. It's kind of a badge of honour. We've been given the stamp of approval by the SACE Council. And if you can say that, then you can market your school more effectively. So teachers are busy working behind the scenes, not just preparing for their classes, but also working towards this SACE accreditation. So that takes up a lot of their time. We have ACARA telling us, this is what I want you to teach in Year 8 science, Year 9 science. So we've got to go away and we've got to try and manage how we structure our year's program. And that takes time. Then we've got to, when we produce material, we need to make sure that it's disseminated to our other colleagues. So it's all very time consuming, and it can drag people down. And you might say to them, sleep is really important, here are the reasons, but they say, well, I keep hearing good reasons for why that's important and why that's important and why that's important. Which one's more important? And so we're fighting, all right? It's a contest. And then when you present stuff to kids, are they in a place where they want to hear it, where they're interested in it, where it means something to them? So I think these are the things that get in our way. Galaxy Quest, that comes from. I don't know if anyone's interested in that. I love that movie. I'm the sort of person that if I get a microphone in my hand, there's a good chance you'll find me. There's absolutely no chance you'll hear me singing, but there's a good chance if it comes anywhere near to a topic that relates to sleep, I'll make the connection. I'll find a way of making the connection. And I think if I do that and the kids hear it enough and my colleagues hear it enough, then maybe they'll start to make the connection. Cecilia, I don't know what term you use, but like an infection I think you use. I had the term viral, contagion.
I think of it as
Yeah.
Thinking about
I found myself in full agreement with you there. To me, it's like if we can make it go viral. Or when I was at uni, I studied physics, and it makes me think of that critical mass before a ball of fissionable fusion material explodes. You know, you've got to have that critical mass, that critical number of particles firing off and producing energy and setting off other particles to disintegrate. And I think we just need to keep tapping people on the shoulder. Okay, so I'm having done this, I'm an advocate for incorporating sleep education into other programs. If you can find a way of doing it, then why not? And if it doesn't impede or get in the way of your other programs, you know, you're still meeting the requirements, then toss it in there, even if it's a little bit. I like to raise it at parent meetings, again, if it's appropriate. I've also spoken about, now I know because of the delayed sleep phase for adolescents, I'm told ideally it should be an hour. So, you know, rather than starting at 8:45, let's start at 9:45. And then I thought to myself, my colleagues will go apeshit at me if I say, because it means they finish the day later. So I find the middle ground and I advocate for a half an hour later start. But it's one of those things that if I just buzz in ears often enough, at some point somebody's going to go, you know what, that's right. It's kind of like when John Howard told us, going back many years ago, we need tax reform. I thought to myself, do we? I've never heard anybody say anything about that before. But he told us we needed it, and damn it, we got it.
And I must say, I do agree with you there, like in my role, you know, representing the government, despite what you read in the literature, you have to find a palatable message that's not going to get either party offside. So
yeah.
The way that we've said, we've had to really soften it to say, just don't have tests or exams first thing in the morning. Like that was our middle ground, unfortunately. But we, you know, you'd hope in years to come. But no, it's not. But you've got to lose a little bit to win a little bit, so that you can move forward.
Yeah,
it's
just
hard.
Slow steps forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
What else have I got? Starting times, yes. Oh, and look, when I'm because I'm a counsellor, so when I'm talking to kids, I constantly inquire as to whether sleep has an effect on what they're experiencing, and I don't think I can remember an instance when I've spoken to a student who is struggling with either depression or anxiety, and they haven't also been struggling with sleep. And I just walk them through the sleep hygiene stuff, and then I bring them back the next week and we talk about what did you do here, and it's like they're stuck in mud. They can't progress. So, and then the last thing I do in my office, I have a poster of like it's a sleep chart. So it goes through the stages of sleep. You know, from waking 1, 2, 3, 4, back up to 3, 2, REM. And then I talk to them about, you know, if you don't get enough sleep, I show them that the amount of REM sleep you get in each successive cycle increases, and that if you chop sleep off, which part do you chop off? What does that do to your REM sleep? How does that affect your ability to remember? And then I do all the spin-offs that go with that. So I think doing stuff like that is helpful as well. We're nearly there. I think. Okay, here's my wish list, and having listened to you, I kind of think maybe I'd change that a little bit, so I might vary what I was going to say. But I actually really believe, let's get in early. I really believe if we can get to parents. Now, you know, again, it's going to be like with the kids. You can talk to them about something, and a few days later they'll have forgotten it and moved on to the next thing. But I think if you can get to parents where they're talking about something really important, we're about to have a child, my child, this special thing. I don't give a stuff about anyone else's, this is my kid, it's important. So tell me, what do I have to do to make sure it's okay? If we can get to them at that point, and I think if we can get them to model good behaviour as well, because kids will look at the people that they look up to, they will tend to follow, they will tend to follow what they model. So if we can educate parents, because we've got a generation that we're starting to educate, and when they become parents, I think they'll start to deliver that message to their kids, and we'll get that exponential growth. You know, you talked about cigarette education taking 20 odd years to take effect. And I believe that it will happen with sleep. But if we can get to parents now, and if we can just hang in with this particular generation, I think within 15 years' time or so, you'll find that the data will look pretty good for sleep education.
And I would probably say that getting in earlier is more effective, but parents struggle with teenagers who are moving away from that close relationship with their parents, so they're following their peers. And that's a real struggle for parents, so we need more research there. How do you support parents?
Well, I think we also need to offer parents, if your kids are desperate to stay in contact with their friends, what are some options where they can stay in touch with their friends, but they don't eat away at their sleep time? You know, let's not just say this is bad for them. Let's say this is bad for them, and here's what you can do instead. You know, so let's offer them something. Okay, and inclusion of sleep education in the national curriculum. I think, yes, they're end of the lesson. Thank you very much.